with simple illustrations to tell you how you can perform a complex task easily. It can also serve as examples that allow you to dive deep into understanding and exploring how each concept works and where it can be used. So in this video, we'll be covering the tips and tricks based on Python lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. We'll also see how to effectively use loops, iterators, and collections in Python. So let me take you to my Jupyter notebook where I'll show you the different tips and tricks. So here is my Jupyter notebook. So let's begin with our first trick. If you want to initialize a list or a tuple filled with repetitive strings or numbers written in the form of a string, we can do that using the multiplication operator. So let me show you. So first I'll declare a list. Suppose A is equal to, within square brackets, I'll declare a string, suppose India. And now if I use the multiplication operator and suppose I say 10, then I'll print A. So this will print India 10 times. If I hit Shift Enter, it will run that cell. You can see we have printed India 10 times. Similarly, let's add another element to our list or another item to our list. Say India, and then we have France. I'll use the multiplication operator and apply 10. So let me print my list again. If I hit Shift Enter, you can see India and France have been printed 10 times. Also, you can use an integer as a string and print as many times as you want. Suppose I'm printing 20 5 times. I'll use the print statement. You can see we have printed 20 5 times. But if I pass an integer as my first operand, it will result in the product of the two numbers. So for example, if I use C equal to 20 into 5, and if I print C, it will give me the product of 20 and 5, that is 100. Next, let's see how you can reverse the elements in a list. For that, we'll use the list slicing method. Let me first show you how you can reverse a string. I'll declare my list as list1 is equal to, and inside this list I'll pass in a few country names such as India, then we have USA, let's say we have France, and then Germany, and finally we have Spain. Now if you want to reverse the order of this list, you can use the slicing method inside the print statement. So I'll write print and I'll pass in my list, that is list1, and I'll use double colon followed by -1. So this will read my list from the end. So if I hit Shift Enter, you can see we have reversed our original list. So now Spain comes first, then Germany, France, USA, and India. Likewise, you can also reverse a list of numbers. So let's reverse a list of numbers. Suppose this time I'll use list2 is equal to, I'll pass in few integers, say 100, 200, 300, and 400. Now if I print my list 2 using colon colon -1, it will reverse list 2. You can see we have reversed our original list 2. So now 400 comes first, then 300, 200, and 100. Now let me tell you how you can print the elements in a list in any order that you prefer. Suppose I have a list that has values like 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then I'll print this list. After that, I'll use 4 variables such as a, b, c, d and assign it to our list. After that, let me go ahead and print any order that I want. For example, I use b, a, d, c and hit Shift Enter. You can see we have printed our list in the order that we wanted. So basically what this cell does is we have assigned the value 1 from list to A, 2 to B, 3 to C and 4 to D, and we are printing in an order B, A, D, C. So this is the result you can see. Now suppose you want to print in some other order, like say I want C first, then I want B, A and then D. So this is the output. Up next, we will discuss list comprehensions in Python. So list comprehension is an effective way to define and create new lists based on existing lists. So suppose you want to extract and separate all the letters from the word simply learn and add letters as items of a list. Ideally, you would use a for loop to do this task. So let's see how you can perform this task using a for loop. I'll assign an empty list, say letters is equal to, I'll use square brackets to assign my empty list. Then and declare a for loop. Suppose for I in, I'll pass in my string that is simply learn, and I'll append the letters using the append function. Now let me go ahead and print the letters. If I hit Shift Enter, you can see this will print all individual letters present in the word simply learn. But the same job you can do it easily with the help of list comprehensions. So let me show you how to do that. First, I'll declare a variable, say letters is equal to, inside square brackets I'll write I for I in my string simply learn. Then I'll just print the letters. You can see we have extracted all the letters from the word simply learn. So this is how we use list comprehension. Now similarly, if you were to find the square of numbers, you would like to create a user-defined function or use a for loop to do it. So let me show you how you can proceed. So we were to define a function. So first I'll import the math module present in Python. And then let's say I'm defining a function called square and I'll pass in a parameter as a. Then I'll write a is equal to, I'll use the power function. So I'll first give in my module name, that is math, and use the power function, that is POW, and I'll pass in my parameter, that is a, and since we want to find the square, I'll give in 2 and I'll return my parameter, that is a. If I hit Shift Enter, now we have successfully run our user-defined function. Now let me call that function. If I write square of a, it has given me 1 by default. Now suppose I want to find the square of integer 5. You can see it has given us the square of 5, that is 25. Now to find the square of a number, you can also create an empty list and use a for loop to iterate through a sequence of numbers and append the square of numbers to that empty list. So let me show you how you can do with this process. Suppose I declare an empty list called squares. I'll pass in my empty list, and then I'll use a for loop. Say for example, for I in range, I'll give 10 as my range, and then I'll append my square value. So I'll pass in my empty list, that is squares dot append. So I'll use squares dot append and pass I into I, and then I'll just call my empty list squares. If I hit shift enter, you can see from 0 to 9, that is a range of 10 values, it has printed all the squares of those integers. Now these two methods that we just discussed need at least 3 to 4 lines of code, but by using a list comprehension, you can find the square of numbers in just a single line of code. So let's use a list comprehension to find square of 5 whole numbers between 0 and 20 having an interval of 4. So I'll use squares is equal to, I'll say x double multiplication operator into 2 for x in, say, range. I'll pass in my range, that is from 0 to 20 with an interval of 4. Now I'll print squares. If I hit shift enter, you can see it has printed the square of values. So first the number is 0, so 0 square is 0, then the number was 4, so 4 square is 16, 8 square is 64, then 12 square is 144, and then 16 square is 256. Moving ahead, in the next trick, I'll show you how you can keep track of the index positions and the items in a list. So for that, we will use the enumerate function to print the item values along with the index positions. So let's say I have a list that has items, say 310 to 94. I'm taking random integers, 450 and say 243. And now if I use a print statement, suppose I'll write using the enumerate function, then I'll use a for loop. Say for example, for index comma element in enumerate, I'll pass in my list, that is list underscore items. After that, I'll use a print statement. I'll pass in index, and then I'll give a list, and that will have my index followed by the value. I'll use another comma and pass in the element. Now if I hit shift enter, you can see we have printed the index position as well as the item value. So at index 0 we have 310, at index 1 we have 294, similarly for index 2 and 3. Now moving ahead, let us understand how we can convert two lists into a dictionary. So a dictionary, as you must be aware, comes with a key value pair. You can use the dictionary method and pass the zip function with our lists as parameters. So let me define our two lists, say item number and names. So I'll use item number and give him some random whole numbers, say 102, 410, and let's say 321. And I'll use my second list, that is names, and let's say this list has some string values like phone, next is laptop, and then we have say tablet. Now I'll assign a variable, say item dictionary is equal to, I'll use the dict function and then pass in zip, and I'll pass in my parameters, say item number and names. Finally, I'll print my newly created dictionary, that is item dictionary. Now let me run it. So you can see we have a dictionary created out of the list. So our keys are 102, 410 and 321, and the item values are phone, laptop and tablet. Now you can check that in the following way. So I'll pass in my dictionary and then I'll use the keys function to get the keys from the dictionary. So you see we have all the keys printed. Similarly, if you want to print the values from the dictionary, I'll use the values function. So that will print all the values. You can see we have phone, laptop and tablet. Now we'll look at how you can find the common elements in two lists. So let me declare my first list as list underscore A, that will be equal to Davis. Then let's say we have Karen. Then we have John. We have Frank next. And then let's say we have another person, say Steve. And let me declare my list B. So list underscore B is equal to, I'll take Karen. Next we have Davis. Then suppose we have Jack. Up next we have George. And then say we have Steve again. Now to find the common elements, I'll use variable, let's say common, and I'll again use a list comprehension, say A for A in list A, then use for B in list B, then I'll use an if clause. So if A equals to B, then I'll print the common variable. If I run this, you can see we have the common elements printed from both the list A and B. So Davis, Karen and Steve are present in both list A and B. Next, let's see how you can remove the duplicate items in a list. Such problems you would often come across while doing data analytics. So the idea is very simple. You just need to convert the items in a list into a set. So that will remove all the duplicate items in a list. So suppose I have a list of numbers. Let me take random whole numbers 20, 22, 24, so 26. Then we have 28 repeated twice. And then again suppose we have 20, and we have 22, and let's say we have 30. Now let me go ahead and print my list. So I'll say original list equals to, and then I'll pass in my list, that is list numbers. After that, I'll convert my list, that is list numbers, into a set. So I'll first use the list function, and then inside of that I'll pass in my set function and then declare my list, that is list numbers. Finally, I'll print my new list. So I'll type list after removing duplicates, that will be equal to, I'll give a comma and then pass in my variable, that is list numbers. If I run it, you can see our original list has all the elements that has duplicate values, and the final list, the output, you can see we have only the unique elements printed. Moving on, now let's have a look at how you can merge two dictionaries. So there are two methods to do this. Before that, let's see how the code would have looked like had you merged the dictionaries using Python 2 version or Python 3.4 version and below. So let's see, I have two dictionaries, say team A. I'll use curly braces to declare my dictionary. I'll give my key as 1 and I'll take Davis. I'll give my second key and say I have Andrew in my team. And then let's say I have my third key and let's say I have Karen. Similarly, let me declare my team B dictionary. I'll take the next key as 4 and the next person would be, say, John, and then I'll use my fifth key. We have Angela, and let's say I have my final member in the team, the sixth member, who is Suzanne. Now if you do it in Python 2 or Python 3.4 version and below, I have to define a function. So let me say define merge underscore teams, which will be my function name, and I'll pass in two parameters, say dict1 and dict2. Then I have dict3. In dict3 I'll use the copy method, so I'll use dict1 dot copy. Then let me go ahead and use my dict3 dot update. I'll pass in my dict2 and then say I'll return my dict3. Finally I'll print it, so I'll use merge underscore teams, then pass in my two parameters as team A comma team B. If I run it, oops, there is a mistake I have made, so this should be dict2 actually. So let me run it once again. You can see we have merged both our dictionaries. Now you can see it has around 6 to 7 lines of code or even more. Now if you want to do this task using Python 3.5 version and above, you can use the update method. So let's see how we can do. I have, say, A is equal to, I'll pass in my dictionary as A has value of 1, say B has a value of 2, let's say B also has a value of 1, and my second dictionary would have key B again and it has a value of 2, and key C will have a value of 1. Now if I write A dot update B and if I print A, let me run it, you can see we have merged both the dictionaries here. Now there's one more method which you can use. Let me show you. So I'll copy paste my team A and team B again, and then let's say I'll declare another variable called final team that will be equal to, I'll use curly braces and then say I'll give 2 star and then team A, comma 2 stars again, and then team B. Then I'll print my final team. If I run it, you can see we have merged both our team A and B, and this is our final team that has 6 elements. Now before moving to the next trick, if you have enjoyed watching this video so far, then please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. Also, if you want to get the source file I am using in this live session, then please mention your email IDs in the chat section. We'll share the source code with you over email. Now let's move on. Similar to a list comprehension, we can also create a dictionary comprehension. Let me show you the trick. Suppose I want to find the square of numbers, so I'll pass in my variable that is square, and I'll use my dictionary comprehension, say x comma x star star 2. This will find the square of a number. For x in range, say 5. So I want the square of the first 5 numbers. Then let me just call it. You can see it has printed a dictionary that has the square of numbers from 0 to 4, that is 5 numbers. So 0 square is 0, 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9, and 4 square is 16. Now let's see the trick to check if all the elements in a sequence are true or false based on a condition. You can do this with the help of all function. All function in Python returns true if all the items in an iterable are true, otherwise it returns false. So I'll directly use my all function. So I'll say all. Now let's say I'll use a variable a, percentage 2. If it's equal to 0, then I'll say for a in range between 0 to 10 with an interval of 2. If I run it, it gives me true because I have defined my range from 0 to 10 and an interval of 2. So the numbers will range from 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 and so on. So all these numbers are divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, so it gives us true. Now if I change the third parameter in my range function, see, I'll make it 3 and I run it, it gives me false. Up next, we'll look at a common programming question that you often get to see in any interview or programming test, that is swapping two numbers. Let's see the trick to swap two numbers in a single line of code. So I'll declare two numbers, say x and y. Let's say we have x as 10 and y as 20. I'll use a print statement, say before swap, give a comma, and I'll declare my variables x comma y. Now to swap two variables, I can simply use x comma y equal to y comma x, and then I'll again use a print statement, say after swap, and I'll write x equal to, say x, and y will have the variable y. If I run it, you see before swap x had 10 and 20, and after swap you can see we have x as 20 and y as 10. So we have swapped the values of the two variables successfully. Now moving on, the next trick I am going to show is how you can concatenate a list containing strings. So we'll use the join function for this. Let's say I have a list characters and it has a list of strings, say p, comma y, comma t, comma h, comma o, and we have the final string, that is n. Now if you were to concatenate all the list elements, I'll declare a variable called word and double quotation marks, and then I'll use the dot operator and join function. I'll pass in my list, that is character, then I'll print my variable word. Below you can see the resultant output. So we have successfully combined or concatenated each element or item in the list character. So we have Python printed. Now let me show you how you can find the most frequently occurring values in a list. So I'll declare a list called test, and suppose it has some random whole numbers, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, then we have 3, 1, 4, 4, 4. I'll use print statement and pass in my max function. Then I'll convert the list into a set, give a comma, and then I'll use key is equal to test dot count. So what it basically does is it will first count the number of times each element is occurring and then find the maximum value out of it. If I hit shift enter, you can see it has given me 4, which means the item 4 has occurred the most number of times in my list. You can see we have 4 times. Moving forward, the next step is how you can use the if-else statement using ternary operators. Ternary operators are commonly known as conditional expressions in Python. These operators evaluate something based on a condition being true or false. So I have my two variables a, b, and it has values 10 and 20 respectively. Now if I use a print statement, say both a and b are equal if a equals to b, else a is greater than b if a greater than b, else b is greater than a. So first I am evaluating this condition. If a is equal to b, then we'll print both a and b are equal. Else if a is greater than b, we'll print a is greater than b. If both the conditions are false, we'll print b is greater than a. So let me run this. We have the output b is greater than a because our b value is 20 and a is 10, so b is greater than a. Now let me create a numpy array and find the cumulative sum in a sequence of numbers. For this, you can use the cumSum function. First I have to import my numpy library, so I'll write import numpy as np. Then I'll declare a variable, say res, which is for result. I'll use a list function and then pass in my cumSum function. And let's say I'll give a range of 10. Finally, I'll print the result. If I run this, you can see we have calculated the cumulative sum of the numbers ranging from 0 to 9. So the first element is 0, then the next element is 1, so 0 plus 1 is 1. Then the next element is 2, so 1 plus 2 is 3. Then 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10, 10 plus 5 is 15, and so on. Let's now understand how you can use iter tools in Python. Iter tool is a module in Python that implements a number of iterator building blocks. It provides several functions that work on iterators to produce complex iterators. We will see an example to find the list of matches to be played between the teams in a league. Here we consider each team will play against all the other teams in the league. So to use the iter tools, I'll first import it. So I'll write import iter tools. And then let me go ahead and declare a list, say football underscore clubs. Let me take a few club names, say Manchester United. Then we have Real Madrid. I'm taking the top clubs from Europe. The next club we have is, say, Arsenal, followed by Chelsea. Then we have, say, Liverpool. And finally we have Barcelona. Then I'll use my list function and use another function that is present inside the iter tools library, that is combination. So it will give me all the possible combinations. I'll pass in my list name, that is football underscore clubs, and I'll give another parameter, that is r equal to 2. If I run it, you have all the matches that would be played in this league. As I mentioned, each team will play against all the other teams. Now we will see the trick to print the total permutations in a given set of numbers using the iter tool and its functions. Now to do this, I'll use a for loop. So I'll use for p in iter tools dot, I'll use permutations function. So permutations, and then let's see, I'll pass in my list that has values 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'll print it. I'll use print. Then I'll use the join function, convert it into a string for x in p. If I run it, you can see below we have all the permutations listed. Up next, let me tell you how you can print all the false values present in a list. Now to do this, we can use the filter false function present in the iter tools module. So I'll use list and then use my iter tools dot filter false function. I'll pass in bool as my data type. Let's say we have a list containing none, then we have false, we have 1, 0, 10. If I run it, it will print all the false values present in the list. So we have none, false and 0. So if you have liked watching this video so far, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with all the trending technologies. Also, if you want to get the source file that I am using in this live session, then please mention your email IDs in the chat section. Our team will share the source code with you over email. Again, If you have any questions related to the tips and tricks we have discussed so far, then please put your queries in the chat section. Our team will answer it in the chat. Up next, let me show you the trick to perform certain mathematical operations inside a list containing pairs of tuples. First, we'll look at how to add elements in a list of tuples. So for that, I'll import my iter tools. You can skip this step because we have already imported our iter tools module. And then I'll import operator. We have a list of tuples, say a2, 5. Then we have 10, 4. We have another pair says 60, 3. Now I'll use list function, and inside of it I'll use my iter tools module. So I'll write iter tools dot star map function, and I'll use my operator and add comma. I'll pass in my list, that is A. Now if I run it, we have the addition of the pairs of tuples present in the list. So first pair is 2, 5, so the addition is 7. Then 10 plus 4 is 14, and 60 plus 3 is 63. Similarly, you can also multiply the pairs of tuples in a list. I just copy paste this code, and here instead of add, I'll use mul to multiply. If I run it, we have the output below. So 2 into 5 is 10, then the product of 10 and 4 is 40, and 60 and 3 is 180. Now let us explore a bit about the collections module in Python. So the collections module implements specialized container data types containing alternatives to Python's general purpose built-in containers such as list, tuple, dictionaries, and set. I'll show you how to change the order of the keys inserted in a dictionary using the orderedDict function. So first I need to import the orderedDict function from the collections module. So I'll write from collections import orderedDict function. Then I'll say d is equal to orderedDict dot, I'll use the from keys, and let's say I have my key as A, B, C, D, E. Then I'll use another function called move to end, and let's say I want to move my key B to the end. Then I'll use inverted commas and pass in my join function, and inside that I'll say d dot keys. If I run it, you can see we have shifted the key B to the end. Now if you want to move the key B to the beginning, you can do something like this. So let me copy the last 2 lines of code from the above cell. I'll paste it. Now here I can give another parameter, that is last, and I'll say false. If I run this, you can see we have the key B in the beginning now. Now the final trick I'm going to show you is how to perform mathematical operations using a lambda function in Python. So lambda is an anonymous function that does not have a name. It can have any number of arguments but only one expression. The expression is evaluated and the result is returned. So let's see how to add and subtract numbers in one line of code using the lambda function. So first I'll declare a variable, say function is equal to, and I'll assign a dictionary. I'll pass in my sum and then use the lambda function. I'll pass in variables x comma y and I'll add x plus y. Similarly, I'll now subtract. I'll use the lambda function again, pass in my variables x comma y, and I'll write x minus y. Now let me run it. So if you want to find the sum of two numbers, so I have to call this first. So I'll use func, and using square brackets I'll give my sum and then pass in my values, say 10 comma 3. This will add 10 plus 3 and return the result as 13. Similarly, if you want to subtract two numbers, I'll just write subtract here instead of sum, and it will return the result, that is 10 minus 3, which is 7. I think with that we have covered all the important tips and tricks that you should know in Python.
Welcome to Python Interview Questions. Certainly the questions we're going to ask in here are very general with a few specifics towards data science, since that's the main direction that Python's going in. And you'd want to expand your questions for your interview depending on the domain that you're using the Python in specifically. Let's dive in and get started with some Python interview questions. Number 1, what is the difference between shallow copy and deep copy? And you can see with shallow copy we have object 1, which has child 1, child 2, child 3, and so on, and object 2, which has child 1, child 2, child 3. A deep copy creates a different object and populates it with the child objects of the original object. Therefore, changes in the original object is not reflected in the copy. Copy.deepCopy creates a deep copy. Shallow copy creates a different object and populates it with the references of the child objects within the original object. Therefore, changes in the original object is reflected in the copy. Copy.copy creates a shallow copy. And you can look at this. If we make a change to child 1, it's only a pointer. So if you make it in object 1 and a change to child 1 in object 1, it will also make that change in object 2. Number 2, how is multi-threading achieved in Python? Oh, this is a good one. With multiprocessing and multi-threading, this question is actually asking you, do you know the difference between multiprocessing and multi-threading and how multi-threading works? Multi-threading usually implies that multiple threads are executed concurrently. The Python global interpreter lock doesn't allow more than one thread to hold the Python interpreter at that particular point of time. So, multi-threading in Python is achieved through context switching. It's very different than multiprocessing, which actually opens up multiple processes across multiple threads. So, multi-threading. Discuss the Django architecture. So the Django architecture, and the first thing to know is that the Django is a web service, way to build your web pages basically. And so when you look at the architecture, you can see here we have a nice model drawn out where the user initiates the Django, which initiates the URL, which initiates the view, what they're going to view, and you have your model and your template. So the model of data, whatever data model you're pulling, goes into the template and then goes back up the pipeline to the user. And the important thing to note is there's a template, the front end of the web page. This is what they're going to see. There's a model, the back end where the data is stored. So you can keep the template and the looks and everything looks the same, but you can swap out the underlying information that goes into that template. Then you have your view, which interacts with the model and template and maps it to the URL, and then the Django serves the page to the user. So your Django grabs it and says, okay, thank you for the URL, and here you go, user. What advantage does NumPy array have over nested list? So NumPy is a module you import. Almost always see NumPy, import NumPy as NP. NumPy is written in C such that all its complexities are backed into a simple to use module. Lists, on the other hand, are dynamically typed. Therefore, Python must check the data type of each element every time it uses it. This makes NumPy arrays much faster than lists. I would also add in that NumPy has a lot of additional functionality that you don't have in list. So there's a lot of things you can automate in the NumPy. Quick flip over to our Jupyter notebook. Any IDE will work. If you're going to do a set of interview questions, taking a quick look at code is always important. We have our import NumPy as NP. We'll go ahead and import time. Here's our list sub for I in range of 100. And all we're doing is we're going to time it. So we're going to create a list. Then we're going to create a NumPy zeros array. And you can see here, look how quick you can create this NumPy zeros array. Here we are appending 1 0 at a time for a regular Python list, and here we are with NumPy. They're all zeros, and they're all of type integer. I believe it's either float or integer on this. I'd have to actually do a type on it. And then, so if we take in and we create a TL1 time equals time, and then we do for I in range of 100, for j in range of 100, L of I, j equals L of ij plus 5. So we're just doing a simple calculation on our array and subarrays. This is an array of arrays. And we'll do the same thing with TL2. TL2 time.time, TL1 equals, so here we have our final time on that. And then we'll do this with an array op, and this is what I really love, a equals a plus 10, and then you can just print it right out. So you can see right here with the NumPy array, we're doing the same thing. If I run this, our time is significantly different. Here we have 0.09 and 0.003. So you can see that the time drops significantly when you're running this on a NumPy array versus a list array. Also important to note, these times aren't going to be, they'll change each time I run it depending on what I have running in the background. So there we go. Number 5, what is pickling and unpickling? Amazes me how many times I pickle and unpickle something. Converting a Python object hierarchy to a byte stream is called pickling. Pickling is also referred to as serialization. Unpickling, converting a byte stream to a Python object hierarchy, is also called unpickling. Unpickling is also referred to as deserialization. So if you just created a neural network model, you can now save that model to your hard drive, pickle it, and then you can unpickle it to bring it back into another software program or to use at a later time. How is memory managed in Python? Number 6. Python has a private heap space where it stores all the objects. The Python memory manager manages various aspects of this heap like sharing, caching, segmentation, and allocation. The user has no control over the heap. Only the Python interpreter has the access. You have a nice little diagram here. Here's your program. There's your interpreter. We have our heap, memory management on the garbage collector going off of there. Number 7. Are arguments in Python passed by value or by reference? Arguments are passed in Python by reference. This means that any change made within a function is reflected on the original object. So you can see here def function of L of 0 equals 3, L equals 1, 2, 3, 4, function L, print L, and you're going to get 3, 2, 3, 4 because we passed L in there, so it's a pointer. Here we have def function L equals 3, 2, 3, 4, L equals 1, 2, 3, 4, function of L, print L. Because in this function I have assigned, instead of operating on a piece of L, the list, I've assigned a whole new value to that list, or L. It then at that point will create a new object. So if I make changes to the object, it's going to change it in the outside the definition. If I use a variable and I assign it a completely new value, like L equals 3, 2, 3, 4, that will not show up when you're outside the function. Number 8. How would you generate random numbers in Python? To generate random numbers in Python, you must first import the random module. The random function generates a random float value between 0 and 1. The random range function generates a random number within a given range. And you can see here 1 is the lower end, 10 is the upper end, and step 2. So it would be 1, 3, 5, and so on as far as the options in the random generation. Number 9. What does the double forward slash operator do? In Python, the forward slash operator performs division and returns the quotient in float. For example, 5 over 2 returns 2.5. To do a double forward slash operator, on the other hand, returns the quotient in integer. For example, 5 double slash returns 2. 5 divided by 2 and you drop the 0.5. Number 10. What does the is operator do? The is operator compares the ID of the two objects. And you can see in here where list1 equals brackets around 1, 2, 3, list1 equals list2 equals true. And you have the double equals in Python, of course. And you can do list1 is list2, where list2 equals 1, 2, 3 is false. List2 is not the brackets 1, 2, 3. It equals it, but it's not the brackets. And if we do list3 equals list1, then list1 is list3 equals true. Number 11, what is the purpose of pass statement? The pass statement is used when there's a syntactic but not an operational requirement. For example, the program below prints a string ignoring the spaces. And so here we have variable equals simply learn. We've added 2 spaces in it. For I in variable, so it goes through each I. If I equals space, do nothing. Else, print I, and then we'll have the end equals bracket bracket, and they'll print out simply learn. Now, of course, you would probably write this if I does not equal blank space, print. But this would be another way you could do that if you need a placeholder for that first logical set or that first area. And you can also do a function like this. You could do function, whatever your def function name, brackets, colon, pass. So it goes into the function and does nothing, but it's a placeholder. Number 12, how will you check all the characters in a string are alphanumeric? Python has an inbuilt method, isAllNumber, which returns true if all characters in the string are alphanumeric. And so you can see here, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, isAllNumber, output equals true. And the second line, ABCD, the @ symbol, 1, 2, 3, the pound symbol, isAllNum, output equals false. So really you just want to know about isAllNum, all numerical, alphanumerical. Number 12, how will you check if all characters in a string are alphanumeric? So here we go. If you know isAllNumber, which returns that the characters in the string are alphanumeric, one can also use regex instead. And so we have Boolean RE match. What's important about this is to note your capital A dash to capital Z, A lowercase to dash to Z, 0 to 9 means that that array includes all of those, the way they have it written out. Plus a $sign, and then we have what we're comparing it to, the string we're comparing to, the ABCD 1, 2, 3. And so we can do an RE.match, and if it matches, if all these things, if all the different entities in that array matches the first one, we get an output true, and if not, an output false. Number 13, how will you merge elements in a sequence? Sequence. There are 3 types of sequences in Python. There's lists, tuples, and strings. Python, of course, makes this easy. If we have a list 1 and list 2, and list 1 is square brackets 1, 2, 3, list 2 is 4, 5, and 6, we can simply do list 1 plus list 2. And our output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we have tuples, your tuple is the curved brackets designates it, and again, just add them together. Same thing with strings. We have simply learn, S1 plus S2 equals simply learn. Number 14, how will you remove all leading white space in a string? Python provides the inbuilt function lstrip to remove all leading access from a string. And you can see here, space python dot lstrip, leading strip, Python. And you can also do strip, which relieves leading and ending. And of course, there's also the ending set. Number 15, how will you replace all occurrences of a substring with a new string? The replace function can be used with strings for replacing a substring with a given string. Syntax, string.replace old, new, count. Replace returns a new string without modifying the original string. Hey John, how are you, John? ? Replace John with capital JOHN 1. And then you can see right here, hey John, how are you? And since we designated with the 1, just says we're only going to replace one of these. 16. What is the difference between del and remove brackets on lists? Del for delete. Del removes all elements of a list within a given range. Syntax, del list start to end. Remove. Remove brackets removes the first occurrence of a particular character. Syntax, list, remove, element. And we see a nice example over here. If we delete the list 1 to 3, it will delete the first, in this case B1, 2. It doesn't do 3, remember that. 1, 2, so it will delete B and C and you end up with a D. Where if we do remove B from the list and we have an A, B, B, D, it's only going to remove the first B. Number 17, how to display the contents of text file in reverse order. Open the file using the open function. Store the contents of the file into a list. Reverse the contents of the list. Run a for loop to iterate through the list. Number 18. Differential between append and extend. Append adds an element to the end of the list. You can see right here we have a list 1, 2, 3, 4, and we append 4, and we end up with an output 1, 2, 3, 4. And extend adds an element from an iterable to the end of the list. And we have here list equals 1, 2, 3, list.extend 4, 5, 6. Output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you want to append an array to the end of another array, you want to use the extend. Number 19.